Welcome to another edition of Cats Wrap with myself, Parker Wheeler, alongside my partner, Ben Nahn.
It's been an exciting past week here in Wildcat country, with swinging on over to some of the records and scores with conference play right in the midst of everything.
Women's soccer has a record of 6-9-4 as they lost 1-2 and are now unfortunately out of the tournament as they fell to Maine. Men's soccer has a 10-3-3 record after a 2-1 victory. Women's hockey got their first victory under their belt and are now 1-8, but they did take a 5-3 loss last time out, while the men's hockey team improved to 3-2-1 on the weekend with a 4-2 victory.
The volleyball team was undefeated until they came up against Albany, who took them down in 3 straight sets, giving them their first America East loss of the season. The field hockey team, with a record of 8-10, lost 3-2 last time out. The football team finally snapped their 2-game losing streak with a big win over Rhode Island, 20-17, to move to 4-4 on the year. Swimming and diving won against Central Connecticut State to move to 2-1 on the year. And the big news so far in Wildcat country is the women's cross country team getting first place in America East for the 3rd straight year in a row.
Coming up later in the show, we're going to take a look at some of the conference tournaments that have happened in the last week or so. The volleyball team had a successful game against the Binghamton Bearcats where they won in straight sets 3-0. Unfortunately, later in the weekend, they played an Albany team who came out very strong and ended up sweeping the Wildcats as well, 3-0. Ben, take us through some of the highlights.
6 seniors were honored in this one from Lundholm Gymnasium, such an instrumental part of this team, but the Great Danes wanted to crash the party. It was neck and neck for most of these 3 sets, especially the first 2, but the Great Danes were just too much. Courtney Bowman did well for the Wildcats, and Tori Forrest, got her 1,000 dig in her prolific career for the Wildcats, but towards the end, the Great Danes were just too much and were able to beat the Wildcats in 3 straight sets. Parker, I believe the Wildcats were so close in this one, they just were not able to come out with the victory. But sometimes a loss is okay, especially as well as they've done in America East play all year long.
Well, certainly. We see these 2 teams now tied at the top of America East with 8-1 records. You knew it was going to be a good game going into it, and Albany came in and they dominated. They played their best game, I think, and the Wildcats did hang tough. You're right. Those first 2 sets especially, it was neck and neck. It would be point for point, back and forth in the end. Albany looked like the better team, and it's going to be exciting going forward into the tournament.
Upcoming games for the volleyball, they're on the November 6th, taking on UMass Lowell at 7 p.m. They look to bounce back with a victory there. Then on Friday the 13th at Stony Brook at 1 p.m. and then on the 15th at UMBC at 1 p.m. So 3 away games here for the Wildcats. If they can muster up some wins, they'll probably get first place going into the tournament.
Yeah, that'll wrap up their regular season, so we'll see how they do from there. The football team had a home game this weekend against Rhode Island at Cowles Stadium. They ended up coming out on top. Ben, bring us through some of the highlights.
Well, it was definitely a barn burner, and the Rams definitely dictated the pace in the first half. Wesley McCoy, a nice little dump pass here to Harold Cooper, who had 222 all-purpose yards in this one. It was all Rams, and then as time winded down in that first half, Harold Cooper just sneaking it in to put the Rams up 17-0. Coach Mack said the Wildcats had to find some pride, and they did here. Sean Goldrich, the quarterback, finding Dalton Cross in there down the right sideline for the score for the Wildcats. And then the defense, clamped down right there. A big play on Harold Cooper to stall him. Akeel Anderson stepped up for the Wildcats there right through the middle. So now it's Sean Goldrich's time, and he just gave it on over the Dalton Cross, who's been the best player all year long for the Wildcats, putting that one into the back of the end zone. And then an 82-yard drive there towards the end. A great pass from the Wildcats over there to Kyan Taylor as the Wildcats came up with the win, 20-17, and a big one to move to 4-4 on the year.
Probably a little bit closer than they wanted it to be, a little bit too close for comfort, but the second half was much better than the first. They ended up making a pretty good play of it, and you're right, tying up the record. That's a big thing for this team.
I thought it was big that Coach Sean McDonald said, he wasn't mad at the team in that first half. He just told them, find yourself, find pride, be different than how you've been in the last 2 games. And Sean Goldrich, that last drive was huge. Looking at some of the upcoming games, they got a big test against Richmond at home. They are 3-0 at home this season. That one's at 3 p.m. Then they travel to Albany on the 14th at 7 p.m. to take on the Great Danes, and come back here for Senior Day on the 21st, a big rival game against Maine at 1 p.m. Later on in the show, we're going to swing it on over to Fatima and Kelsey. We're going to look back at the women's soccer season, but first, let's take it to the ice and talk some hockey.
Yeah, UNH has played well recently. 2 straight victories against ranked opponents in Union and Merrimack. Goaltender Adam Clark has come in and taken over for Danny Tironi and played very well during that time. We see UNH ranked 5th in the nation in goals scored right now. Not quite there defensively. That's something they've got to work on going forward.
It's been incredible coming off that tough 5-goal blown lead against UMass to go to Union the night after and then take down that ranked team in Union, who won a national championship, by the way, only a couple of years ago. Was big for the Wildcats. I think it was like a season-saving almost win. And then they go on over to Merrimack, who's been playing out of their mind. Win that one. Andrew Podorowski, 2 goals in that one. I agree with you. There's things to fix. But the fact that, you put Clark in, we were kind of talking about that early in the year. Like, if they do this, this could be something that could propel the Wildcats. But don't forget about Tironi yet. I just think some things personally maybe he has to figure out. It's tough being a goaltender. A lot goes on in that mind of yours.
Oh, yeah.
But for the Wildcats, they are looking good. But Michigan State is going to maybe be their toughest test of the season.
Yeah, taking a look at the upcoming games for the Wildcats, they do have 2 against Michigan State on Friday and Saturday this weekend before moving on to another game against Merrimack away on the 14th.
The women's soccer team wrapped up the season in dramatic fashion as they lost to Maine in penalty kicks in the America East Conference Tournament. Here are the highlights.
The Wildcats were first to get on the board 16 minutes into the first half when Brooke Murphy connected with Nikki Sloan for a goal off the header. Maine was quick to respond when Vivian Beal kicks a corner, which is saved by Mimi Borkin, but Maine stuck with it and Robinson put it home to tie the game 1-1. The game stayed tied all the way through regulation and both overtime periods as we entered penalty kicks. After both teams traded goals in their first shots, the Maine goalkeeper made a great save on the shot from O'Neill. Beal is up next to shoot and got it by Borkin. Then UNH's Murray steps up and Maine makes a great save. Up next, Maine put one past Borkin, followed by another UNH shot made by Sloan. Maine Susie's shot is stopped by Borkin, while McGoldrick makes a shot for UNH, but Leon Palmer of Maine nets the winner for the Black Bears and ends the season for UNH.
It's tough for the defending conference champions to lose in penalty kicks in an elimination round. However, it's expected, as usually when UNH plays UMaine, it's a tough match. About a week ago, UMaine won in overtime 2-1.
Exactly, and it did take the team a while to find their goal scoring, and it wasn't really until conference season started that they started scoring consistently as a team. I mean, all in all, it was a good season, disappointing loss, but their team's already looking forward to the future, and it's a bright future at that, with star players like Borkin and Murphy returning for another year of action.
Here are the top 3 plays from the past women's soccer season. At number 3, Brooke Murphy shoots a free kick almost 30 yards out for the goal against Stony Brook.
At number 2, Kelsey Pratt scored 2 goals on 3 shots in a game against UMass Lowell on October 28th to help the Wildcats win that with a score of 4-2. Rounding out at number 1, we're going to give this one to the team as a whole in a 6-0 win over Binghamton on September 27th. It was the most goals the team scored all season, and the offense just exploded in the first conference game of the year. Brooke Murphy had her second multi-goal performance, and joining her in that scoring column was Caroline Murray, Gabrielle Sloan, Gabby Dorsey, and Kendra Prince. Goalkeeper Mimi Borkin had one of her 4 shutouts of the season during this game.
The field hockey team had their final home game this past weekend where they took on border rival University of Maine. Ben, bring us on through the highlights.
Well, on over to Memorial Field. Yes, the Wildcats taking on their rival, the Black Bears, right away. Katie Audino finding Meg Flatley there for the first score of the game. That one right in the back of the net. Wildcats up 1-0, but Maine answered a nice save there by Rise, but the Black Bears able to get that one in the back of the net. Tied 1-1. After another chance here, the Maine Black Bears find the back of the net once again, up 2-1. The Wildcats, though, did battle back. Again, Audino, nice pass there, and a nice goal by the Wildcats. Made it 2-2 as this one kept winding down here in the second half, but Maine, towards the end, found the back of the net. Lindsay Nerbonne had a great game, quite a few shots on net. She was the America East Fan Choice Player of the Year. Once again, though, the Wildcats just couldn't get this one, but still a solid year. A little bit of inconsistency throughout, but moving towards the playoffs, a lot on the line, and they can do big things.
Yeah, maybe not as dominant as they're used to in the regular season, I would say. Facing an Albany team that they ended up losing to, I believe last weekend it was. And, they might end up seeing each other again in the America East tournament as they have before. But looking at the tournament, structure and everything, the Wildcats will play Pacific at the University of Albany for their first matchup in the tournament. So that will certainly be interesting as we see all the matchups there in this side of the bracket. But the Wildcats, they've got a lot to work on, I think. I think going forward into the tournament, they can have a fresh start here and see if they can start to, build up and see how far they can make it into this tournament.
They say it's a clean slate once you get into the playoffs. If the Wildcats can come away with that first victory, generate some momentum, they should be looking good.
The men's soccer team dropped their season finale last night with a loss 3-1 to Vermont. They had a chance to finish with the number 1 seed in the tournament if they won with some help from other teams. They ended up in the 6th seed in last place in the conference tournament, but they are in the tournament. Ben, what'd you see in that game?
Yeah, Dylan, it was a tough one for the Wildcats, especially being their last game of the season at home. Coming off a thriller against Hartford the night before with the Chris Arling winner. The Catamounts just came to play. They played hard. They were able to stifle the Wildcats on the defensive front. Wildcats couldn't create any separation. Quick goal there by the leader with the right. Got the Catamounts on the board in that first half, and they didn't look back. Chris Arling did try to break the 2-0 deficit, and he did. It was 2-1 and almost was able to tie it up 30 seconds later. But then Lamana ended up getting that empty netter there when the defense was all the way back for the Wildcats. So, Vermont with a big win. They jump to the number 2 seed now as the Wildcats fall. So it was definitely a tough matchup, but at least they're in the tournament.
Yeah, and you can see there on the bracket, the tournament bracket is set. The Wildcats will travel to Maryland on Saturday to take on UMBC, a team that they tied with earlier this year when they played 1-1. And the winner of that game will travel to Vermont next Wednesday to take on the team.
Yeah, the Retrievers, a really tough team. Doesn't help. I think the Wildcats really wanted a playoff game here from Bremner Field. It is what it is. Last time these two teams met in the America East America East playoffs for that matter, it was the title game where the Wildcats were blanked in that one. They still have yet to win an America East title. So this should be a really interesting matchup, and I'm looking forward to it. As the calendar turns to November, temperatures definitely getting colder around here, but with America East playoffs starting for a lot of teams, we're going to look for the Wildcats to get hot. It's definitely going to be an exciting time of the year.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. For Ben Nahn and the entire production crew, my name is Parker Wheeler. Have a great week, Wildcats.